Welcome, I'm in the back of this 2006 Honda Odyssey EXL, and in a previous video I talked about setting up Bluetooth in this minivan. So this has the rear AV ports here, and I have this Bluetooth receiver that you plug into that with RCA cables, and then on the stereo you select aux and you can have Bluetooth. So the downside of this solution is that this relies on this 12-volt port that plugs in back here. So you have to have this sticking out and the cord sticking out, and then if you fold the seats back, this will break off. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how I wired in a USB port here. Now this is not a comprehensive video, so this is more for people who know how to do some automotive wiring and are looking for ideas on how to solve this problem. So our AV ports are here, and there's a little cover plate here, and I think on the Touring model this actually has a household outlet here. But it seemed like a natural place to put a USB outlet, so I figured I wanted to run a wire from here down to here to get power. So one option would be to remove all of this, but I looked to see if there's a way to wire this without removing everything. So I pried up on here with a pry tool, and I got it up just enough where I could stick a borescope in here. And with the borescope, I saw these little tabs. So if you don't have a borescope, you could potentially pry this up and just try and hit these areas, or maybe you could use a flashlight to look through here. And if you press up on these tabs and kind of push up, you can get under this lip and pull this out. And there are tabs on the other side too. And then this thing comes out. I could disconnect it, but I left it connected. But it gives you access to under here. So I looked around, and I think there's a screw somewhere over here that holds it on. I don't think you can pop this whole thing up. So I got that out. I used the borescope, and I realized that we could run wire down through here. So I didn't want to run bare wires. There's metal and such. So I went with this wire loom. So to route this, I actually stuck this over my borescope. You could also use a piece of wire, and I routed it. Actually, I ran it from here down here, and I could pull this away and kind of grab it, and I made it go over here and out here. So it goes from here, down here, across, and back. And that was coming out of this hole. Then I just fished it to this other smaller hole. And I had it very long when I did it. And I did it a little bit backwards. I had a really long piece, so I filled up half of the loom with this wire, and this is an 18 gauge silicon wire, and then I pulled the loom through with the wire, and then I snipped it at this end. So I had the loom with the wire installed on it. Now the wire was longer than I needed, so I eventually pulled some of it back through. So I actually did this part second, but what I have here is I have the loom, I have the silicon wires, I used a little bit of shrink tubing, and I put some connectors on here and connected it up to the back of this outlet. So this has plus minus on it, and my wires are black and red for positive negative. Now I don't have a way to mount this. I could try and drill a hole in this. It's 1 1/8 inch. That would be a pretty precise hole, and I don't know that I'll be able to do it. So I actually am probably going to try and switch over to a square USB outlet. Again, this video is mostly to give people ideas. I'm not covering exactly how I'll do that, but you can get like RV outlets and they mount with 2 screws, and I think that would actually work fairly well here. I thought about 3D printing one, and that is another option I may look at, but if I can get a square outlet, this will work just fine. So then I can tuck this back, and there should be clearance behind here for that to stick through. So a little adapter plate, you could even cut something out of wood and hot glue it in place, but that'll put USB ports right there. Then down here, I had the power wire, and I'm going to cut to a video I recorded earlier where I show how I made a little splitter on the wire so I could power the outlet and my new USB ports. Okay, so here's the crimping at the wire that hooks into the power outlet. So you can see I have male spade connectors and female. So the females will go on the back of the outlet and the male will go into the plug. This is what the plug looks like. So the one on the right is negative, the one on the left is positive, and that's the same on the outlet too. And you can feel with your fingers, there's going to be one that's in the middle of the plug, which is this one, and that's the positive because that's the terminal in the center of this plug. Then the outer one is the negative. So the power will be going into these spade connectors, they will be sent to this outlet, and then these wires will go to the 3rd row USB port. Okay, so I have that all tucked back up under there. Now you can unscrew this outlet. There's a metal sleeve on it, and you could put a mirror down here with a flashlight and look at it. And you can pull this whole thing out if you need a better look at it. Now you could potentially also add USB ports here, but then you still have the problem with the wire sticking out. So I just left that as a 12 volt. That could be handy for plugging in a fridge or something. Now these are running off the same circuit. I don't have a fuse on my wires. This is a fused circuit, so if my wires got shorted, the fuse that protects this would go off. Now you also want to make sure you don't overload this. Now the USB ports take very low power, but you want to keep that in mind. And I guess I didn't go over this. This is just where the jack is stored. I pulled the plate off here and took the spare tire off. To get the spare tire plate off, you just pull here and here, and this whole thing rips off. So now this is in here, I can take these pieces and pop them back together, and I can pop this back in and then this I can still pull back out if I want to put a different solution in there. So it's kind of hard to do that one-handed. I'm going to pop this back in. Okay, so I got this back together. I actually had to put my hand in here and push out on this area, and it snapped back together. Now this thing can go back in like so. So now this can plug into here, and this has a long USB cord on it, but this could be changed over to like a 6-inch USB cord or maybe even a 4. So I'll just kind of press that back there. This can go in here now. These are the RCA to 1/8-inch jack plugs that will go in here. And all these wires can get stuffed in here. And now this can close. So if you got shorter cables, this would be a much cleaner setup. Okay, so I wanted to insert this little clip. So I finished off with this hanging out. And I happen to have this outlet, but it's obviously not very good looking. So I got this rectangular outlet. I crimped on some spade connectors. I actually soldered them a little bit too. Now this came with this rubber cover. I pulled this off, and it has this little thing that clips on top. It has a recess for that cover, which would normally go up. I'll probably turn it around and put that down. And it also comes with some screws. They're kind of ugly screws, but they'll be hidden. So I'll get this installed, and then I'll show what it looks like after the install. But to install it, I'll just connect up these spade connectors. I'll mark the holes, I'll drill pilots and screw it in and clip the plate on. I'm going to use some of this extreme tape, self-bonding tape here. So I'm going to wrap it around one side of this, and then I'll wrap it around both, and that'll help keep them from becoming disconnected. I could use electrical tape, but I really like this self-bonding stuff because if you don't want it on there, you can just cut it off and it doesn't leave any sticky residue. This is where the holes ended up that I drilled. Now they don't look even on here, but this looks okay to my eye, and this is going to be hidden, so that's where I decided to put them. Okay, so I have the port in. I'll snap the cover plate on now. There we go. So that looks nice. Now that doesn't absolutely look stock. You know, it's black, but it looks very nice, I think. And it looks pretty even to my eye. So now I can put the Bluetooth receiver in here. Now I ended up getting a shorter cord. This is, I think, an 8-inch micro USB cord. Plug that in here. And I went through my stash and I found a shorter 3.5 millimeter to RCA cable. So that's a much cleaner setup. I can close the lid there if I ever need to get to it. Opened up, and there it is. Now, I don't know how good this USB port is. It supposedly supports quick charge and PD and all that, but this thing just sips electricity. It takes very, very little. So I'm not worried about it getting overheated or anything under here. So that's adding a rear USB port to a 2006 Honda Odyssey EXL. Now, I'm not saying this is the best way. I just wanted to share my experience. I think this is going to be a lot nicer for my Bluetooth setup. Having that cord hang down here was a hazard, and it was going to break eventually. This can be tucked away, and now this van more or less just has stock Bluetooth. So that's all I'm going to cover in this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you like this video, please click like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you could do that. And thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.